I will now recognize myself for an opening statement. Again, we welcome you to this hearing on the consequences of soft on crime policies. Over the course of this Congress, our oversight has included hearings in Democrat-run jurisdictions like Manhattan, Chicago, Washington, D.C., and Philadelphia. Revealed in those hearings was the dangers of the left's agenda that provides leniency towards criminals. The witnesses at these hearings have told us the horrific and tragic stories of how soft on crime policies have hurt them and their families. Prosecutors who have refused to put criminals in jail routinely have downgraded felonies to misdemeanors and declined to prosecute entire categories of crimes, has resulted in increased criminality and violence. Meanwhile, leftist policymakers are passing bail reform laws that make it easier for criminals to remain on the streets and harder for police officers to protect their communities. This hearing is a continuation of that oversight. If Democrats are successful in their policy goals, the left-leaning criminal justice policies of Manhattan, Chicago, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, California, Minnesota will become common throughout the country and will actually have impact on federal imposition of criminal codes. I hope these hearings serve as a wake-up call to Americans to demand that their elected leadership abandon these policies that have made their communities less safe, and I hope it also reminds Congress of our requirement regarding federal law. Violent crime in Minnesota remains significantly elevated due to the lingering effects of the summer 2020 riots, in addition to the prosecution's refusal to hold criminals accountable. Following the riots and violence that occurred during the aftermath of the death of George Floyd, Minnesota's twin cities, Minneapolis and St. Paul, faced unprecedented damage and destruction, and crime remains concentrated in those cities today. During the summer of 2020, the riots of the summer of 2020, 1,500 businesses in the Twin Cities were vandalized, looted, or damaged, with at least 67 of those buildings destroyed by fire. Additionally, the Minneapolis City Council attempted to disband, but ultimately defunded the police department by $8 million. Today, the metropolitan area still struggles with police recruitment and the aftermath of the riots, where enforcement have had to cut back on proactive policing. Additionally, the two district attorneys for the Twin Cities both practice and implement radical, soft-on-crime policies that enable dangerous criminals and exacerbate crime. We will hear from two witnesses from Minnesota today. 40 years ago, a near-decade-long crime wave started in California. In the 8-year period between 1985 and 1993, violent crime across all categories increased 66%, from approximately 202,000 to approximately 336,000 incidents per year. Rising violent crime in the state, including the brutal and brazen murder of Kimber Reynolds in 1992 and the rape and murder of 12-year-old Polly Klaas by repeat offenders with lengthy criminal histories, mobilized Californians to demand and enact a three-strikes law. In March of 1994, then-Governor Pete Wilson, a Republican, signed into law the three strikes and you're out criminal sentencing measure. The following November, California voters reaffirmed the measure when they voted overwhelmingly in favor of Proposition 184. That initiative was nearly identical to the legislation signed by Governor Wilson. The law increased the prison sentences of persons convicted of felonies who had been previously convicted of a violent or serious felony. As a result, violent crime in California between 1994, when the proposition was imposed, and 2010 showed a 49% decrease from approximately 319,000 to 164,000 incidents per year. 20 years later, California decided to adopt a soft-on-crime approach. In 2014, Californians approved Prop 47, which in November 2014, California voters approved Prop 40. I got that twice. Sorry. In November 2014, California voters approved Prop 47, which reclassified many felonies as misdemeanors. This includes many drug crimes and theft of items that are worth less than $950. Reclassifying these crimes from felonies to misdemeanors mean that many defendants are no longer susceptible to the three strikes law passed in 1994. In 2016, the state approved Prop 57, which reformed the parole system and allowed dangerous offenders to be eligible to be released from prison. After more than a decade of implementing these soft-on-crime policies, crime rates rose and continue to rise in California. In 2023, violent crime increased 15.1% from 2018 and increased 3.3% compared to 2022. Similarly, between 2018 and 2023, the aggravated assault rate increased a staggering 30.6% in the state, while the homicide rate declined by 15.8% in 2023 compared to 2022. A substantial increase of 9.1% occurred between 2018 and 2023. In other words, implying a decrease from all-time highs as they do, this demonstrates that there is still a significant problem and that there's been an overall growth and increase in homicide rates. Further, despite having some of the strictest gun control laws in the nation, aggravated assaults with firearms in California increased 63% between 2018 and 2023. California's violent crime rate is 31% higher than the United States rate and is driven by the increase in aggravated assaults. California also suffers from elected soft-on-crime prosecutors. One of our witnesses today will tell us how that has impacted her life. And we're seeing similar policies being enacted at the federal level as well. One clear example of this is found in the recent actions of the U.S. Sentencing Commission. The Sentencing Commission has begun changing their sentencing guidelines to shorten the sentences of criminals, as well as their post-incarceration terms of supervision. These types of changes will lead to the same results as we have seen in California and Minnesota, a rise in crime and a decline in safety at the federal level. These recent changes are no doubt only the beginning. The same folks who implemented the soft-on-crime policies in California and Minnesota are now asking to run the federal government. Why, based on their records, would we believe they would be tough on crime and make our communities safer? Americans deserve to live in safe communities, and they deserve and want their elected officials to do everything they can to make sure that that happens. I'm looking forward to the hearing. I appreciate our witnesses being here. I appreciate the members who are here today, and I will yield back